Hi, I'm Becky Streepy from Glue and Glitter, and today we're gonna make some pasta. All of these pasta dishes are super easy to make. They're simple dinners that you can throw together even on a weeknight. They range in cooking times a little bit, so choose your own adventure based on how much time you have and what you have in the fridge and the pantry. Let's start with red pepper pesto. This dish is super easy to make. It's definitely the quickest of the bunch. You can make the sauce in the time that it takes for the pasta to boil. Get that pasta cooking and then pull out your blender and add some drained roasted red peppers. You can just use them straight from a jar. If you want to roast your own red peppers, you can. Just know that that's going to up the cooking time significantly. Then add some fresh basil, some roasted salted cashews, and some olive oil. Yes, you need the oil. This is a pesto, and pesto usually includes oil. Then add some fresh garlic and a little bit of nutritional yeast. The purpose of the nutritional yeast is to replace the Parmesan cheese that you would use in a traditional pesto. It gives that same cheesy flavor without using cheese. You can omit the nutritional yeast if you want. The sauce is just going to end up a little bit thinner than it would have without it, and it won't have that like cheesy undertone. Then add a little bit of balsamic vinegar. Usually pastas use lemon juice for the acid, and I'm using balsamic vinegar instead. It gives a really nice, sweet, robust taste that plays really well with the red pepper. I highly recommend it. Now you're ready to blend. By now your pasta should be done cooking, so transfer it to your serving bowl and then pour on the pureed pesto and toss in some sliced black olives. You can also toss in some cooked veggies of your choice if you want to. I like to do broccoli with this or sometimes spinach. You do whatever you want depending on what you have in the fridge and what you are feeling that night. Once you do that, you're ready to serve. I like to serve this with a sprinkle of my magical fairy dust. If you've never made my magical fairy dust, it's super easy. It's also a blender recipe. It takes just a few minutes to make, and it's great on top of all kinds of pasta dishes, pizzas, salads. We put it on everything. Up next is a spaghetti casserole. Casseroles by nature take a little bit longer because you do have to bake them, but you don't have to be there during that baking time. The actual active cooking time for this recipe is very, very short. You're going to start by boiling your spaghetti, and you're actually going to boil it together with a drained can of chickpeas. This will save you some time because the chickpeas will soften and cook while the pasta cooks. While the pasta is cooking, prepare your kale and put it into your colander. That way you can just pour the spaghetti and chickpea mixture right into the colander on top of the kale. The hot boiling water plus the heat from the pasta is going to wilt the kale perfectly for this recipe, so you don't even have to saute or steam the kale. You're going to cook it using just that pasta cooking water. It's instant. Grab yourself a large glass baking dish and stick a pat of vegan butter in there. You can use olive oil instead if you don't do vegan butter. And then just toss in that hot pasta kale chickpea mixture. Sprinkle on a generous amount of Italian seasoning and garlic powder. Then toss it all together. Top it off with vegan cheese shreds. I like to use mozzarella, and sometimes I even throw on a little bit of vegan Parmesan too. Make sure you spread the cheese out evenly, and then you're ready to bake. Bake it for 20 minutes at 350. And dinner is served. Up next is spinach artichoke pasta. This is another recipe where you can get the sauce together in the time it takes the pasta to cook, so get your pasta cooking. I used rigatoni, but you can use whatever kind of pasta you like. And then it's time to make the sauce. Start by soaking cashews in hot water for 10 to 15 minutes. Once the cashews are soaked, drain off that water and discard it, and then transfer the soaked cashews to your blender, along with a half cup of water, 3 cloves of garlic. As you can see in the video, the garlic is minced. You do not have to pre-mince this garlic. That's actually minced garlic from a jar. I used an equivalent of 3 cloves. If you have a head of garlic though, you can just pop 3 cloves into the blender, no problem. Then add some lemon juice and puree that until it's smooth. By now your pasta should be done cooking, and you can actually just transfer it right back to the pot that you cooked it in once you have drained it. Pour the garlic cashew cream over the top of the pasta, and then add a thawed bag of frozen spinach and a drained can of sliced artichoke hearts, and toss that all together. Once you've tossed the pasta and sauce and veggies together, I like to put the pan back on the stove and over medium-low heat, just kind of Stir the pasta until it's warmed back through, but you can actually serve this up at room temperature and it's still delightful. Up next, let's make some vegan baked ziti. This baked ziti uses homemade vegan ricotta, but don't worry, it's super easy to make. Before you start layering things into your casserole, you want to boil 2 cups of dried ziti and then set that cooked ziti aside so it'll be ready to layer on when it's time. Start by crumbling a block of extra firm tofu into a bowl, and then add some olive oil, lemon juice, nutritional yeast, Italian seasoning, and garlic and onion powder. Mix that well and then set it aside, and your tofu ricotta is ready to go. Now grab an 8 by 8 inch glass pan and pour tomato sauce or pizza sauce onto the bottom. So spread that tomato sauce around because that's what's going to prevent your pasta from sticking to the bottom. Now layer on half of the cooked ziti, and then you'll add a 12-ounce package of vegan meatballs that you've cooked according to the package directions. I cooked mine in the air fryer, but you do whatever works best for you. Now it's time to layer on that tofu ricotta and spread it so that it covers everything pretty evenly. And then add a layer of vegan mozzarella cheese and spread that around too. Then add another half cup of tomato sauce and spread that around as well as you can. Now you're ready to layer on the rest of the ziti and top it off with whatever sauce you have left. Then top it all off with the rest of your vegan mozzarella and a sprinkling of my magical fairy dust. If you don't want to make magical fairy dust, you can also use vegan Parmesan cheese in its place, but this fairy dust is amazing, y'all. The recipe makes way more than you'll use in this ziti, and you'll be glad to have it around the house. Then toss this in the oven for 30 minutes at 350, and you're ready to eat. I hope that this video has inspired you to make some pasta for supper tonight. If you have any questions about any of the recipes that I showed in the video today, feel free to drop them below. I'm always happy to help. And don't forget to rate and subscribe. Happy cooking!